Kansas City has their molasses-rich sauces, the Carolinas has their vinegar and mustard-based sauces, and Texas, well, they don't have a sauce. They consider themselves purists. But in northern Alabama, they do things a little differently. Instead of sweet or red sauce, their sauce of choice is white, and it's been that way for about 100 years. But why? Why did a 6'4", 300-pound railroad worker decide, I'm gonna start dunking smoked chicken into a mayonnaise-based sauce? And is the shit even good? Is it overrated, or is it barbecue's best kept secret? Well, we're gonna find out today because we're gonna dive into the history of the Alabama white sauce. We're gonna recreate it, and we're gonna smoke some chicken over hickory wood, and we're gonna put the sauce to the test.
Turn it up!
I'm Joe, and this is my YouTube channel, Fork Embers. I do all kinds of shit on this channel, but it's always specifically barbecue. This video in particular is a part of a series that I call BBQ Passport. And in this series, what I like to do is take a region that I'm interested in, that you're interested in, and I dive into the history of the barbecue. I figure out what makes it what it is. Where did it come from? But more importantly, we get to try to recreate it, which is the fun part. I try to recreate it as authentically as I possibly can, and we're gonna have a lot of fun. More importantly, we're gonna learn a lot. If this is your first time visiting my channel, go ahead and subscribe, hit that notification bell, because I got a lot of cool shit for you. We're gonna laugh, I'm gonna drink, and we're gonna learn a lot. I said that. Let's go.
Well, I hope Neil Young will remember. What do you say, Pittsburgh? A Southern man don't need it.
Say the term barbecue hotspot. I guarantee Alabama doesn't come to mind. It didn't for me. I mean, what's in Alabama? Barbecue. I don't know much barbecue in Alabama, but I learned that there's actually a pretty rich history of barbecue in Alabama. And in the 1920s, there was one man that was going to change barbecue forever in that region. And he was going to put his stamp on the barbecue world forever. This man's name was Big Bob Gibson. Big Bob Gibson was 6'4", 300 pounds, and he was a railroad worker during the week, and on the weekends, he was a pit master. The guy loved cooking, and he loved his community. And on Saturday, he would fire up a pit that he dug in the ground in his backyard, and he would low and slow cook pork shoulder and chicken. And he would do this over hickory wood. His barbecues became local legend. The man would serve his food on a rough cut old oak plank that was nailed to a sycamore tree. I mean, that's pretty badass. And everyone was invited, literally everyone. Friends, family, strangers. If you were in town and you smelled this guy cooking and you came up to his backyard, he was gonna feed you. That was the type of person that he was. Imagine that happening today. That might happen for some of you, but for a lot of people, that's not a thing, unless you really, really know your neighbors.
I returned your lawnmower. I need your wife 2 more hours.
It's like pulling teeth to get people to show up to a barbecue sometimes. And I bet his grocery bill was pretty damn high. And in the 1920s, when you would source chicken, you probably wouldn't get a lot of chicken that was uniform in shape and size. You'd go from 2 pounds to 7 pounds to 3 pounds to 6 pounds. You just would not have a uniform shape. I can go to Kroger, to Walmart, to the butcher, and I can buy all my chickens between 5 and 7 pounds, guaranteed, because we have commercial feeding. So the reason I bring that up is because Big Bob Gibson would run into an issue where smoked chicken would dry out. I mean, smoked chicken does dry out regardless, but imagine cooking 100, 200, 300 whole chickens. Slowly, it's gonna dry. So he's like, man, I really need a solution for this. I'm serving up these dry ass chicken. They can get dry as a popcorn fart, and I need a way to elevate my game, bring it to a whole nother level. So what he did is, while everyone else was focused on serving up vinegar-based sauces, rich sauces, Big Bob Gibson, he was keen to vinegar sauces. That's kind of what they used in that region. That's what they liked, that's what they used. So this man's like, you know what? I'm gonna drop in some mayonnaise. And nobody knows the true origins of why this man did this or how he came up with the idea. I don't know if he had some culinary background, but it was a stroke of genius and the shit worked. People loved it. And it solved this problem. You no longer had dry chicken, it was juicier, more moist, added flavor. I mean, think about the flavors. They really work. You have fats and acids. Beautiful marriage of flavor. And people fell in love with it, and it would eventually become known as Alabama white sauce. Now, Big Bob Gibson, his barbecues, they outgrew his backyard. People were showing up, trampling his fucking flowers, wife was throwing a fit, yard got destroyed. I don't know that actually happened. I could imagine. You got a bunch of people pulling up to your yard. I know what happened with my wife, probably would raise a fit. So he said, you know what? I'm gonna capitalize. I'm quitting my shitty job. Actually, that wasn't a shitty job probably back then. But I'm gonna tell you what, I bet it was a lot harder on the back than smoking chicken. So he's like, I'm gonna quit my job and I'm gonna open a restaurant. This is 1925. He opens his first restaurant in Decatur, Alabama. Now it's very simple, it's very small. He kept true to his roots and he slow smoked pork shoulder and whole chickens. And he did this on a pit that he dug behind the building. Massive fucking pit. I would love to have a pit out here in my yard like that. Wife's not going for it. And I don't really want to, I don't like people. I don't want them over my house.
Please exit the area. Please exit the area. Please, when you get a chance, I'd love to talk to you more about this being the area. Please exit the area. Please exit.
But this man was the opposite. So he opens a restaurant and it takes off. People love it. And from day one, every chicken that came off the pit went straight into the Alabama white sauce. And instead of being a side condiment, like a lot of barbecue sauces are, they're served in a little cup or on the side, this sauce actually became an important step, an essential step in the cooking process. Because aside from adding flavor and moisture, what it would do is it would actually stop the cooking process. So when it comes off the pit, you dip it in this sauce and it would stop that carryover cooking from happening, at least to an extent. And on top of it, it just happened to taste damn good. And customers were so intrigued, so impressed by this, and it was so different than what they were being served up at other barbecue joints. And the restaurant killed it. They did amazing for years and years. As word got out, travelers made Decatur, Alabama a must stop for them. You're traveling through Alabama, you're gonna stop at Decatur, Alabama and try Big Bob Gibson's barbecue. It was that famous. The barbecue spot, it did change locations a few times, but one thing that it kept traditionally throughout was the Alabama white sauce. Their technique has stayed the same for pretty much 100 years. And by the 1950s, Big Bob Gibson's barbecue became a true Alabama institution. It was to Alabama what Franklin's and Terry Black's barbecue is to Texas. It was that level. So let's skip ahead about 30 to 35 years. We're talking 1980s to 1990s. And this is when barbecue competitions became huge. A man by the name of Chris Lilly married into the Gibson family and he took over as the pitmaster role. Lucky bastard. And it was really him who took Big Bob Gibson's barbecue into the competition scene. Under Chris Lilly's leadership, they were winning competitions left and right. They won multiple world championships. Most notably, Memphis in May. Memphis in May is the mecca of barbecue competitions. If you can win there, everyone's gonna know your name. People travel from all over the world to go to Memphis in May. They have music festivals, they got all kinds of shit. But barbecue is king. Winning 5 grand championships is what really catapulted the Alabama white sauce to the national spotlight. They was here, now they're here. Everybody knew about it. He was hitting them with shit they had never seen. Nobody had ever seen a mayonnaise-based vinegar sauce even thought of something like that, right? That's genius level. It wasn't Chris Lilly who thought of it. It was Big Bob Gibson. But it was Chris Lilly's leadership that really took it into the competition scene and made it national. And like any good businessman, 1990s roll around, and Chris Lilly's like, we need to capitalize on this sauce. I've won all these competitions with it, so you know what? Let's start bottling it. And that's what they did. They bottled it. So in about the mid-1990s, you could find this stuff in stores from Alabama, to Tennessee, to Mississippi, to Georgia, even down to the nutsack of America, Florida. I mean, you could find versions of this white sauce in restaurants from Chicago to California. It was even in some fancy smancy restaurant called The Publican in Chicago, and they would serve it with grilled carrots. Everyone was riding the coattails of this Alabama white sauce, and it was, it was just something new, completely different. I guarantee you there's a lot of people out there right now that has never heard of it, or if they have, they've never tried it. Even with all the notoriety and championships, infamous stories, there's still people that haven't heard of it. I mean, you got fucking people from Germany, Sweden, Australia, everyone traveling to try this man's white sauce. Something a lot of people like to do, Americans and people coming over to visit America, is they'll create a barbecue road trip. They'll drive from coast to coast, trying all kinds of barbecue. And thanks to Big Bob Gibson in the 1920s, Decatur, Alabama is now on their route. And that essentially wraps up the origin and history of the Alabama white sauce. Why it is what it is today, where it came from, it has a pretty cool, unique story, and I found it all very interesting. You rarely end up with one person that makes that big of a difference in barbecue. Usually it's a movement, but this man single-handedly put Alabama on the map for barbecue. So So now that we know the origins of the Alabama white sauce, let's go ahead and recreate it. We're gonna make some white sauce. We're gonna smoke some chicken. It's gonna be fun. Now this recipe comes from Chris Lilly's cookbook. It has a little bit of variation to it, but come on, I'm telling you, this dude did not share the authentic recipe that they're using in the restaurant. I don't even think Chris Lilly knows what the hell Big Bob Gibson was doing in the 1920s. I could pretty much tell you it was probably mayonnaise and vinegar and some pepper. Big Bob Gibson actually was quoted saying that it is a vinegar sauce that happens to have mayonnaise in it. But I'm gonna tell you, it usually got more mayonnaise than vinegar in a lot of the variations that they have today. But this is the closest we're gonna get to what they're using in the restaurant today. And it tastes damn good, I'm told. Oh, but really quick, before we jump into it, let's go ahead and take a look at this old ass sponsor that is definitely not sponsoring this video.
Mr. Turtle, how many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop?
I never made it without biting. Ask Mr. Owl.
Mr. Owl, how many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop?
Let's find out. 1, 2, 3, 3.
How many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop? The world may never know.
Okay, so this sauce is very straightforward and very simple, not a lot of ingredients. I would almost guarantee that there weren't this many ingredients in it in the 1920s, but this is what Chris Lilly has given us. So we're gonna roll with it. Get a wide top bowl because we're gonna have to dunk chicken down in it. So what we're gonna start with is 1.5 cups of mayonnaise. Now don't be getting that low fat shit, get the full fat. Next up, we're gonna use 2/3 cup of apple cider vinegar, and we're gonna add 1/2 cup of apple juice. Now I've heard this is called Alabama vinegar. I don't know, that's just what Chris Lilly has called it. Add that to the bowl. Next, we're gonna hit you with some more acidity. That apple cider vinegar and that apple juice, the apple cider vinegar added a real nice acidity, while that apple juice added a sweet touch to it. But this is a vinegar-based sauce, so we're gonna add some lemon juice to it. This is gonna be 1/2 cup of lemon juice. That comes out to be about 3 whole lemons. Next, I'm gonna give you a little kick in the teeth, and you're gonna add some horseradish. This is prepared horseradish. This isn't the shit that's in the sauce. This is straight up horseradish. We're gonna add 2 tablespoons of that. And lastly, we're gonna add our seasonings. Now, I've got 2 tablespoons of black pepper in here. I went with very coarse black pepper. You can add a bunch of black pepper, as much as you want. I'm gonna go with 2 tablespoons. That's what the recipe calls for, because this is a very vinegary, peppery sauce. This also has 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of mustard powder, which I can tell you now, I don't believe Big Bob Gibson's ass was using mustard powder, but they add it now, you know, because we're elevated. And I go with a little bit more cayenne than most recipes call for. I'm gonna do a full teaspoon. I like it to be hot as a goat's ass in a pepper patch. So add that in. And then get you a whisk, get it mixed up. Make sure you break up all that seasoning. We don't want no clumps. I think I got her there. Give it a good taste. Damn, that's pretty good. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna set this in the refrigerator overnight. I've heard that is the best because it allows those flavors to kind of meld together. So this is gonna go in my refrigerator overnight, and I'll see you tomorrow when we prep the chicken and cook it over some hickory wood. Okay, today we're gonna be prepping the chicken. It's a very straightforward process, not a lot of steps. Now, Big Bob Gibson, not 100% sure how he prepped these, but I do know that Chris Lilly in his restaurants, they're actually spatchcocking it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna spatchcock it, but I'm actually gonna split the chicken in half just to make serving it and dipping it a little bit easier. Very simple process. A lot of videos out there show you how to do this. You can use scissors, I've used gardening shears, whatever. But get you a cleaver and you can make pretty quick work of it. If you just go down one side of the spine, and it should cut right through. We split that pretty quick. Now some people will go ahead and cut this right in half. We're gonna go ahead and finish removing this spine, just so we can get it out of the way. And just like that, it's over with. So what I like to do is I'll flatten this bird out, and there's gonna be a breastbone right here. We're actually gonna remove that. That way it makes splitting the chicken a little easier. Let's go ahead and break it with the cleaver here. There we go. Little bitty bird. He ain't got much of a breastplate. And just like that, What we want to do now, go ahead and split that bird down the middle, and there we go. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. I go ahead and remove the feathers too. You don't want to leave those on there. Sometimes they'll burn off, sometimes they don't. Guests usually don't like eating a feather. We'll go ahead and knock this other bird out. Okay, so now that we've got the chickens cut in half, what we're gonna do now is take a little olive oil, vegetable oil, whatever you got, and just coat it. Reason we're doing that because we want something for this salt and pepper to stick to. So now that we got it coated in some oil, we're gonna do something pretty simple with the seasoning. This is most likely what Big Bob Gibson was doing in the 1920s, and that's salt and pepper. And that's pretty much what they're doing in the restaurant today. They might add something else to it, but really it's down to the traditional roots, salt and pepper. Get a good layer on there. Next, we're gonna go with some coarse black pepper. We want a lot of this on there. It's really kind of like a Texas smoked chicken. I like to go heavy on the pepper. Flip it over. We'll do the other side. Salt that pretty good. Make sure you get under that wing because I see a lot of people when they season chicken, they don't move that wing and you end up with no seasoning under the wing. And when you cook, those wings will usually draw out like that and then you'll have a big spot there on the breast where there's no seasoning. We're keeping it very simple today. Good barbecue is really all about simplicity, honestly. Nothing crazy, not a lot of seasonings, just some good old salt and pepper, and that's it. You can't really beat it, honestly. All right, we got it seasoned up. Go ahead and pull the rest of those feathers out. Nobody wants to eat that shit. So now that we got them seasoned up, let's set them in the fridge and we'll talk about the cooking method that we're gonna use today. While the chicken rests, let's talk about how we're gonna smoke it. We've talked about how Big Bob Gibson had dug a pit in his backyard and he was cooking over hickory wood. Well, I'm not digging a hole in my backyard. It wouldn't fly with the wife. And I don't really wanna do that. But what I can do is simulate it as best as I possibly can. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my Weber Smoky Mountain. Now hear me out. The way that I'll simulate it is that we know Big Bob Gibson cooked his chicken over hickory wood. He most likely used direct heat, even though today Chris Lilly states that they use indirect heat on concrete pits. So a little bit different. But Big Bob Gibson likely used a method where he cooked directly over coals and kind of used a mixture of the two by moving chicken around to cold spots, to hot spots, you know, kind of touching the chicken pretty much most of the time he was cooking it. What we're gonna be doing is using the Weber Smoky Mountain, and the technique is gonna simulate essentially what he was doing. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take the water pan completely out of the smoker. We don't need it. Then we're gonna take some hickory wood, we got plenty of that, and we're gonna burn that down into coal. And we're gonna get a really nice glow and burn off of this wood. Once we've gotten the wood to a place where we're comfortable with it, then we'll take the cooking chamber of the Weber Smoky Mountain and place it on top of the charcoal chamber. I am gonna warn you, do not put the cooking chamber on the Weber Smoky Mountain charcoal chamber with this blazing fire. You're gonna melt the handle off the door. I've done it. I'm actually waiting on a replacement now as we speak. The temperatures that you'll likely see in the smoker will probably be around 350 to 400. That's perfect. Once we have the temperatures to where we want them and we have the fire going pretty good, we're gonna take the chicken and we're gonna place it skin side up on the top grate. This is gonna allow that skin to really crisp up and get a nice hickory smoke flavor to it. It's gonna cook relatively quick depending on the size of your bird. In Big Bob Gibson's restaurants today, Chris Lee has said they spend about 3 hours smoking a chicken. That's likely due to the indirect cooking method that they're using. I doubt that it was taking Big Bob Gibson that long to cook chicken, especially if he was cooking over coal. So once we have the chicken on there, we're gonna let it cook. Once the skin starts to get a really nice color and you know that salt and pepper is really binded to that skin, we'll start spritzing it with some oil. Now in the restaurants, what they'll do is they'll take the whole chicken off and they'll dump it in a bucket of fat. Then they'll place it back on the smoker. And that really allows it to crisp up and gives it an amazing flavor. It's essentially frying it, right? And that skin has no choice but to get crispy. So we're gonna do that by using a spritzer, spritzing it with oil. Then when the breast reaches 160 and the thighs have reached 175, we're gonna go ahead and remove it and we'll immediately dunk it in the Alabama white sauce. Okay, so the chicken is finally done. It took about 1.5 hours, maybe 2 hours. And now it's time that we dunk it into the Alabama white sauce. Okay, so we have the chicken dipped. And while we let it rest, let's kind of recap on what we did. So, aside from talking about where it come from, all that, what we did with the chicken is we smoked it on our Weber Smoky Mountain, no water pan, and we cooked down hickory wood into coals. Then we cooked with that. The temperature stayed consistently 350 pretty much throughout the whole cook. Sometimes I would bring it up to almost 400 at the end. To get the skin crispy on the top, sometimes you might have to flip it over. Just depends on how your smoker's working. Do it however you see fit, but the skin got really crispy on these. So I'm interested to see how the skin did once I dunked it into that sauce. It looks completely different. It's after you've dunked it versus when you've taken it off. It's almost like it absorbs the sauce, and I don't know, it's like, I don't know, we'll see if it's still crispy. We're gonna find out. Let's give it a shot. All right, let's go ahead and try, I like the leg with a quarter, so that's what we're gonna try. Wow, that's crazy. The hickory smoke is so strong. That's why I love it, but that white pepper tangy sauce, it cuts through it so well. The fat from the mayonnaise, crazy. You know what I'm most surprised about? The skin. The skin got almost tacky. It's not crispy like it would be if you had just eaten it before dunking it, but it's got like this tacky, not rubbery or chewy, but it breaks apart really well. So the sauce does not hinder the edibleness of the skin. That's really good. If you haven't tried this, you should go ahead and give it a try. That's crazy. That technique right there I just showed you, foolproof. You're not gonna fuck up the chicken. It's easy. I'm gonna keep on eating on this, man. I'm gonna have to shut the camera off. One thing that a lot of locals actually recommended doing, because this sauce is so runny, is if you wanna serve it on the table side, add a little bit more mayonnaise to it, and it'll make it thicker, and it'll make a really good dipping sauce. That's just a little tip that I've gotten from some of the locals. So, and I might end up doing that as well with, I got a lot of leftover here, so that's probably what I'll end up doing. Damn, man, I'm impressed. Alabama. Alabama white sauce might not be the most well-known barbecue sauce, but it has stood the test of time for damn near 100 years. What started in the backyard of Decatur, Alabama has made its way into fancy restaurants in the mecca of barbecue competition. And they have really reached the pinnacle of success when I'm talking about it on my YouTube channel, broadcasting it to all 2,500 subscribers. They've made it. I don't know where they go from here. And whether you're a die-hard Alabama sauce fan, or someone that hasn't tried it, or someone that hasn't tried it but you plan on trying it, I will tell you, Big Bob Gibson knew what the hell he was doing. But this is just one stop on this adventure of BBQ Passport. There's a world of flavors out there in the barbecue world, each with their own flavors, traditions, key elements, and uniqueness. Where do you think we should go next? Let me know in the comments. So if you enjoyed this deep dive into the Alabama white sauce, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like the video, and ring the notification bell, because I got all kinds of shit coming your way. And until next time, I'll make it like a banana and split.